Tower Mystery Vintage Murder by Nigel Marsh, author of Death in White Tight, Overturned to Death, Death at the Bar. Cleveland and New York, the World Publishing Company. For Alan Wilkie and Fred Y. Hunter Watts, in memory of the tower in New Zealand. Forward, although I agree with those critics who condemn the building of imaginary towns in actual countries, I must confess that there is no Middleton in New Island of New Zealand, nor is Middleton a pseudonym for any actual city. The largest town in New Zealand is no bigger than, let's say, Southampton. If I had taken the Digress Comedy Company to Elkland or Wellington, Myers, Wade, Packer, and Cass has nothing to Dr. Rangi T. Pookham might have been mistaken for portraits or characters of actual persons. By building Middleton in the open country somewhere south of Auckland, I avoided this possibility, and with clear conscience can make a usual statement that all the characters in the story are purely imaginary and bear no relation to an actual person. Cast of characters: Roderick Allen, Susan Mask, Haley Hambledon, Corton Barter, Porthead, John Ackroyd, Carolyn Drakes, Alfred Myers. Fallon Gaines, George Manson, Ted Ganson, Frederick Livertside, Brandon Varon, Fred Burt, Bob Passon, Gordon Palmer, Jeffrey Watson, Dr. Reginald Polkin, Detective Inspector Wade, Detective Sergeant Packer, Detective Sergeant Cass, Superintendent Nixon, Singleton, Criminal of Investigation Department, Scotland Yard, Character Woman, Leading Man, Second Juvenile, Comedian, Head Leading Lady, Her Husband, Prospector and Managing Director in Incorporated Playhouse Ltd. A Beginner, Myers Partner, Business Manager, Incorporated Playhouses Ltd. Stage Manager, First Juvenile, Character Man, Head Mechanic, Stagehead, a dresser, a bear club, his leader, a Maleficent of Newland Police Force, stage doorkeep at L'Oreal. Context: Prologue: in a train, Mr. Myers in jeopardy. Offstage: first appearance of Tiki. Intermezzo: second appearance of Tiki. Wardrobe room: muster money. Courtney Broadhead scene. In case of wide open. St. John Ackroyd and Susan Mask. Liverside fluffs his lines. Miss Gayson goes upstage. Barrison on police whistle. 6 a.m. first act. Kurt scene. Enter Act A. Change scene. Duologue. Kirsten motive centers. Exit Liverside. Exit Bob Parkinson. Business withdraws. Fourth appearance of Tiki. Alan Mixer. Dr. T. Pocono plays to type Warren Curtin. Alan speaks the tag. Epilogue. Vintage murder. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. That's basically what I think. That's basically the intent murders, context, and the scenes, and I'm actually quite curious from what you just heard what you actually think this book is going to be about by what I just read of all that and what the pictures that you see that I brought up it's going to be about before we even read the first chapter. You can probably even, if you truly want to go the extra mile, look up who the author is if you truly want to. While I read the first chapter, I expect you to take a few notes on what you think is an important detail. Once I read the first chapter, I expect you for homework to read the second chapter and write a small summary about it. The one who gets the best grade will be posted up on the board. Opinion. Let's first start. Chapter 1. A prologue in a train. The clop and roar of the train was an uneasy element somewhere at the back of the tall man's dreams. It would die away, and fantastic hurrying faces come to claim his attention. He would think, I'm sure I'm asleep. This certainly is a dream. Then came a jolt as they roared, with a sudden increase of racket. Over a bridge through the cutting and fantastic faces disappeared. He was cold and stiff. For the 100th time he opened his eyes to see the dim carriage lamps, and the rows of faces with their murky highlights and cavernous shadows. Strange company I got into, he thought. Opposite him was a leading man, a large kindly swaying slightly with the movement of the long, narrowing, gouging carriage, politely resigned to discomfort. The bulge of rugs in the seat next seat to the tall man was Miss Susan Max, the character woman. An old trooper, Susan, with years of jolting night journeys behind her. First in this country, then in Australia, then next up down the province in England, till finally she made her comfy little niche for herself in incorporated play houses in West End. 20 years ago she had joined an English touring company in Wellington. Now, for the first time, she revisited New Zealand. She stared with unblinking eyes at the dim reflections in the window pane. The seat opposite to Susan was empty. The next block, George Mansion, the manager, a dyspeptic, resigned-looking man, played an endless game of two-handed wits with Ted Grayson, the stage manager, and there, nodding as a mandarin beside the old Brandon Braun, with Alkaloid the comedian, and those ill-tempers so much at the Varison with his funny face, sitting in front of Manson, a pale young man fidgeting restlessly in his chair. This was Courtney Broadhead. Something the matter with that youth, thought the tall man. Ever since Panama, he caught the boy's eyes and looked beyond him where Mr. Francis Liverside, so much too beautifully dressed, led Miss Valerie Gayson to adore him. Beyond them again was to the far end of the long carriage were dim faces and huddled figures. the Carolyn Darcy's England Comedian Company on tour in New Zealand. He felt very much of an outsider. There was something about these people that gave a united front. Their very manner in the night train, rattling and roaring through the strange country, was different from the manner of other travellers. Dozing a little, he saw them in more acquainted trains, in the stagecoaches and wagons, wearing strange garments, carrying bundles, but always together. They were, their heads bobbing in unison, going back and back. A violent jerk woke him. The train had slowed down. He wiped the misty window pane, shaded his eyes, and tried to look out into this new country. The moon had risen. He saw arch hills, stumped burnt trees, some misty, white flowering scrubs, and a lonely road. It was very remote and strange. Always in front, and the engine whistled. Trees, hills, and roads slid sideways and were gone. 3 lamps traveled across the window pane. They were off again. He turned to see old Susan dab at her eyes with her handkerchief. She gave him a deprecating smile. "Those white trees are milka bushes," she said. "They bloom at this time of the year. I always forgotten." Had forgotten. There was a long silence. He looked from one dimly lit, slumped figure to another. At last he became aware of Hambledon's gaze fixed on himself. "Do you find us very queer cattle?" he said. Hambledon, as his air of secret enjoyment. "Why do you ask that?" said the tall man quickly. "I noticed you looking at us and wondering what your thoughts were. Do you think of us as queer cattle?" In order not to disturb Susan Max and make himself heard above the racket of the train, he bent forward. So did the tall man, with their heads together under the murky lamp. They looked like conspirators. "That would be an ungracious thought," said the tall man, "after our kindness. Oh, you mean George Manson offered of the seat in our carriage?" "Yes. The alternative was a back to the engine pews, by a swinging door, among commercial travellers, and next to a lavatory." "Oh, well, every queer cattle may be preferable to all that. But I didn't say I thought if he had it would not have been very strange. Actors are a rum lot. The last name I heard said that was an actor and a murderer," said the tall man. "Really?" Hamilton raised his head. "You don't have any chance meaning Felix Gardiner?" "I do. How did you guess?" "Now, I do know who you are, of course. How stupid of me. I've seen your photographs a number of times in the papers. It's been worrying me." His companion looked at Susan Max. Her 3 chins were packed snugly down into her collar, and her eyes were closed. Her whole person jogged rhythmically with the motion of the train. "She knew me," he said, "but I asked her not to give me away. I'm on holiday." "I should have guessed from your name, of course, how inadequate one's memory is, and without your your rank. Exactly. They spelt me wrongly in the passengers list. Well, this is very interesting. I shan't give you away. Thank you. And at any rate, we're part company in Middleton. I'm staying for a few nights to see your show, look around, and when I go on to the Isles, we may be, we may meet again," said Hambleton. "I hope so," said his companion cordially. They smiled tentatively at each other, and after an uncertain pause leant back again in their seats. The train roared through a cutting and gathering speed, rackety plane, rackety lane. It said faster and faster, as though out of patience with its journey. The guard came through and turned down the lamps, now with white faces of the travellers looking more cavernously than ever. The carriage was filled with tobacco smoke. Everything was grimy and stale. The shrill laughter of Miss Valerie gave an ecstacy over a witness witticism of Livicide rose above the din. She stood up a little to settle in an expensive fur coat and began to walk down the carriage. She swayed, clutching the backs of the seats, stumbling, fell half across George Manson's knees. He gave her a disinteresting squeeze and made a knowing grimace at Garrison, who said something about, "If you will go native." Miss Gaines yelped and got up. As she passed Hamilton and the tall man pauses. "I'm going to go to my sleeper. They call this deluxe? My God, what a train!" She staggered on. When she opened the door, the iron clamorousness of the progress filled the carriage. Cold night air rushed from outside, bringing a taint of acrid smoke. She struggled with the door, trying to shut it behind her. They could see her through the glass panel. Leaning against the wind, Hamilton got up and slammed the door, and she disappeared. "Have you taken a sleeper?" asked the tall man. "No, Hamilton. I should not sleep. I should probably be sick." That's how I feel about it too. Carol and I have gone to theirs. They are the only other members in the company who have risked it. The woman has just got to be expensive. Valerie, I mean. I noticed that in the ship. Who is she? Any relation to the old propagation? Gayness? The shipping man? Daughter leaned forward again. Academy of Dramatics Arts. Lord knows how big of an allowance and insatiable desire for the 4-foot-lights endured the words actress at our passport. Is she a good actress? Dire. Then how? Pomfret. And push. It seems a little unjust to overcrowd professionalism. Then how goes? Said Hamilton with a shrug. The whole business is riddled with preferment nowadays. Preferment nowadays. It's just one of those things. Susan Maxwell had lolled on to one side. Helen took her travelling cushion and slipped it between her cheek and the wall. She was fast asleep. "There goes your real honest-to-good actress," she said, leaning forward again. Her father was an actor manager in Australia, starting life as a child performer in his father's stock company. Susan was trapped for 45 years. It's in her blood. She can play anything from grand dame to corporal and play it well. What about Miss Darkies? Or should I say Miss Meyer? I've never known her with married stars. She's Carolyn Darcy's all the time, except in hotel registers, of course. Carolyn is a great actress. Please don't think I'm using the word great carelessly. She is a great actress. Her father was a country person, but there's a streak of stage in her mother's family, I believe. Carolyn joined a touring company when she was 17. She was down in the Promisins for 8 years before she got a chance in London. Then she never looked back. Hamilton paused and glanced apologetically at his companion. In a moment you will accuse me of talking shop. What? Why not? I like people talking shop. I can never understand the prejudices against it. You don't do it, I noticed. Man, come in. I'm on holiday. Why did Miss Darcy marry Mr. Alfred Myers 10 years ago? Hamilton shortly said. He turned to his seat and looked down the carriage. Harrison Darcy's company has settled down for a night. Garrison Mason and Gaston had given up with their game of two-hand wits and drawn their rugs up their chins. The comedian had spread a sheet of newspaper over his head. Young Courtney Bryan was awake, but Mr. Livingstone was open, and those rolls of flesh was disciplined by day were now separately prominent. Except for Broadenhead, they were all asleep. He looked at his watch. It's midnight, he said. Midnight. Outside the hurrying windows, the country slept. Farmhouses lonely in the moonlight. Sheep asleep or tearing with quick jerks at short grass. There's arching hills that ran in curves across the window panes, and the white flowering trees that made old Susan dab her eyes. They were all there, outside but remote from the bucking train, with the commercial travellers, its tourists, and its actors. The fascination of the train journey involved with the tall man lies with the remoteness of the country outside, and in the realization that it was so close. At any station one may break the spell of the train and set foot on the earth. But as long as one stays in the train, the outside was a dream country. A dream country. Excuse me. He closed his eyes again, and presently was fast asleep, and troubled by the long dreams that were half broken by the scene of discomfort. When he woke again, he felt cold and stiff. Hamilton, he saw, was still awake. The carriage seemed to be continually turning. His mind was a picture of a corkscrew with a gat-sized train twisting industriously. He looked at his watch. Good Lord, it's 2:10. I shall stay awake. It's a mistake to sleep in these chairs. 2:10, said him. It's time for an indiscreet conversation. Are you sure you do not want to go to sleep? Quite sure. What were we speaking before I dozed off, Mr. Staircase? Yes, you asked about her marriage. It was difficult to even guess why she married Alfred Meyer. Not because he's a big nose in Court Playhouse. Carolyn had no use for that sort of home. She had arrived. Perhaps she married him because he was so especially commonplace, as kind of set off of her own temperament. She was a true artistic temperament. The tall man winced. And Hamilton had made use of a trace that he had detested. Don't misunderstand me, continued very earnestly. Alf is a good fellow. He's very much liked in business, but well, he's never been a romantic figure. He lives for the firm, you know. He and George Manson built in between them. I've played the IP productions for 12 years now. 8 pieces in all, and 5 of them I played opposite Cameron. He's had the actor's habit of giving full dramatic value. Everything, he said. His beautiful voice, its practiced influx, suggestion, and romantic attachment. She was rather a wonderful person. He meant that, thought his companion. He's in love with her. His mind went back to the long journey in the ship, with Carolyn Darcy very much star-turned but not, he had admitted aggressively, the great actor. Dressed, she, in her pale, plump, rather common, rather uninteresting husband, had sat in the desk chair with a portable typewriter on his knees. She with a book. Very often Hamilton had sat along beside her, also with a book. They had none of them joined with an all-nighters poker parties with young Courtney Broadhead, Liverside, and Bradley Gayness. Thinking of those three, he turned and looked at the dim carriage. There was a young Broadhead, still awake, still staring at the blind window pane, at its blank reflections, as if conscious of other gazes. He jerked his head uneasily with an upward movement, rose to his feet, and came down the carriage's passenger. Fresh air. I'm going out to the platform. Young ass, said Hamilton when he had gone through the door. He's been losing money. You couldn't indulge in those sort of frills on his salary. They looked at both the glasses. Burnham's back was against him. I'm worried about the boy. No business of mine, of course. One doesn't like to see that kind of thing. They were playing high, certainly. Fiver to come last night, I believe. I looked into the smoke room before I went to bed. Riverside had won a packet. Courtney looked very sick. Early in the voyage I tried to tip him a wink, but he got in with the bear leader and his cub. Weston and young Palmer, you mean? Yes, they're on the train. The cub's likely to stick their heels throughout the tour, I'm afraid. Stage struck? That's what they used to call shook on the pros. He hangs with Carolyn, I suppose he knows. She tells me his father, he's a Sir something Palmer, noisy rich, would pack him off to New Zealand with Wetstone and hope to teach him sense. Weston's cousin. The boy was sacked from his public school, I believe. Shipboard gossip. Is it strange, said the little man, how a certain type of Englishman still regards the Dominions either as a waste paper basket or a purge? You're still not a colonial, surely. Oh, no. I speak without prejudice, although I believe we're stopping. Are we? A faraway whistle was followed by the sound of banging doors and a voice that chanted something indistinguishable. These sounds grew louder. Precisely the far door of their own carriage opened. The guard came down the corridor. 5 minutes at Oakham for refreshments, he chanted, and went out the near door. Burton moved aside for him. Refreshments, Hamilton said. Good Lord, I don't know. A cup of coffee, perhaps. Anyway, a gulp of fresh air. Perhaps you're right. What did he say the name of the station? I don't know. It sounded like a rune or incantation. O-A-Ku-Ni. Okani. Susan Max unexpectedly said. Hello, Susan. You've come up with the breath, have you? I haven't been asleep, dear. Not really asleep, you know. Forgotten you are Australian. I am not Australian. I was born in New Zealand. Australian is 4 days' journey from. I know, said the twin with the apple man. Well, it's provoking, dear Miss Maxwell, hopefully. I don't like to be called Australian. Not that I've
have any against the Aussies. It's just ignorance. A chain of yellow lights traveled past the window. The train stopped and ushered a long, steamy sigh. All along the carriage came the sounds of human beings yawning and shuffling. I wish my father had never met my mother, grumbled the comedian. Come on, Hamilton, said to the top man. They went through the door. Courtney Broadhead was standing in the near iron platform of the carriage. His overcoat collar was turned up and his hat jammed over his eyes. Ignore that. He looked lost and miserable. The other two men stepped down to the station platform. Cold night air smelled clean after the fog of the train. It's supposed to be fog, not fog. But I think that's there was a tang in it, sultry and exciting. It smells like the inside of a flower shop, said Hamilton. Moss, cold, and cold wet earth, and something else. Are we very high up in the world, I wonder? I think we must be. To me it smells like the mountain air. What about this coffee? They got two steaming china baths at the refreshment counter and took them out onto the platform. Haley, the window of one of the sleepers had opened it appeared ahead. Carolyn walked swiftly to the window. Haven't you settled down yet? It's, after all, 2:30. Don't you know that? The milky lights of the station shone on the face, finding the hollows round the eyes and under the cheekbones. The tall man had never been able to make up his mind about Caroline Darcy's face. It's been beautiful. Was it faded? She was intelligent, as her face seemed to promise. As he watched her, he realized that she was agitated about something. She spoke quickly and in an undertone. Hamilton stared at her in surprise, then said something. They both looked at the tall man. She seemed hesitant. Stand clear, please. The bell jangled. He mounted the platform of his carriage where Courtney Broadhead still stood hunched up in his overcoat. The train gave one of those preparatory backwards clanks. Hamilton, still carrying his cup, hurriedly mounted for the far platform of the sleeper. They drawn out of the station into the night. Courtney Broadhead, after a long side glance at the tall man, said something inaudible and returned to the carriage. The tall man remained outside. The stern of the sleep carriage in the front swayed and wagged, and the little iron bridge that connected the two platforms jerked backwards and forwards. Perceptibly, Hamilton came out of the sleep and holding the iron rails that made him fall towards him over the bridge. As soon as they were together, he shouted, "Very upset, most extraordinary. Wished you—" The wind snatched his voice away. "Can't you? It's Myers. I can't make it out. Come over here." He led across the bridge, drew his companion into the entrance lobby of the next carriage. "It's Myers. He says someone must try to murder him." And that's the first chapter. God, my voice. As you can see, you may write a summary on the first chapter, write another summary for the second chapter, and it's due 2 Fridays away. If you must know both of those summaries. The first, I do not expect the first summary to be good. The second summary, I hope you have a bit more of a cohesive here to it after you read the chapter. Second chapter. maybe in the next session we will read the second chapter. Maybe not. It's still by lots. And we have yet to read Tell Me Your Dreams by Sydney Sheldon. But first, we finished reading the first chapter of Vintage Murderer. I hope you enjoyed today's lessons and review what you have done. I hope we see each other next session, in the next class. Until then, have a nice day, finish your homework, and relax. See you soon.